Hello, my name is Madison Crittenden, and this is Talking to Stakeholders. First, here's just a little bit about me. I'm a senior at Arkansas State University. My major is Communication Studies. I'll have a not-for-profit communication certification. Before we begin, we need to discuss a few definitions. First, what is a crisis? According to Collins Dictionary, a crisis is a situation in which something or someone is affected by one or more very serious problems. Next, what is a stakeholder? Also, according to Collins Dictionary, a stakeholder is a person who has an interest in a company's or organization's affairs. And this could come in many different forms. It could be a customer, an employee, an investor, a supplier, communities, or maybe even a government. There are several different types of crises: terrorism, sabotage, workplace violence, poor employee relationships, poor risk management, hostile takeovers, and unethical leadership are some examples. The first question we need to address is, what can you do in a crisis? Or maybe even, what should you do? The first step is simple. You should have a plan. You should be informed, run through a plan or a practice run, and communicate. To be informed is to expect what can happen will happen. With this mentality, you'll always be prepared for whatever happens, even if it's the worst. You should run through a plan or do a practice run. I was employed by Arkansas State University to be a resident assistant. When going through the training process, we went through a program called Open Doors. During Open Doors, resident assistants were expected to walk into a dorm room not knowing the situation that they were coming in on. It could be a roommate altercation or maybe even substance abuse. During this, resident assistants were to address the situation as they would if it were in real life. From this, we moved to communicate. The RA supervisors talked to the resident assistants about what they did well, what they should improve on, and really just how they approached the situation. An example of poor crisis communication would be Tesla and Elon Musk. During a podcast presented by Joe Rogan, Elon Musk was seen drinking whiskey and smoking a marijuana cigarette. How did Elon handle this? Well, he didn't. He was very unapologetic, very unprepared, and very unprofessional. He didn't really think that what he did was wrong, and he never addressed the situation publicly. A good example of crisis communication would be H&M. They produced this sweatshirt worn by this African American boy that says "coolest monkey in the jungle." This is obviously not a good decision as it's very racist. Accidents do happen, and whether or not this accident, if this was an accident or not, is not for me to decide. But they addressed the situation quickly. They removed this article of clothing from their website and from their stores, and they addressed the public and apologized for it. You should be prepared. Know how to put out a fire before you start a fire. That's something my father has always told me. Don't go into a situation blind. If you don't know if you can handle it, just step back and start planning some more. You should proceed. Take action after a crisis. Address your audience and decide what your position is. Whether you need to take a few minutes to step back and let the public handle the crisis before you address it, or you need to take action immediately. That's something you need to know. You need to know how to address your audience. And that comes with your position. Are you going to be apologetic? Are you going to deny it? Are you going to point out your highlights? These are all things that depend on each different crisis. Lastly, you need to move on from it. You need to learn from your mistakes and make sure they don't happen again. Remember that mistakes are mistakes. Don't beat yourself up about it or call it quits just because you made one, and put it to rest. After you've addressed the situation and your public has been addressed, your audience has been addressed, and your stakeholders are comfortable, move on. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and here are just a few references that I used.